But today's event, which I'm delighted you've been able to join, whether you're watching this live or you're watching back on the recording, is going to be exploring university courses in history, religion, philosophy and ethics. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Georgia Hargreaves from Edge Hill University, Dr. Christian O'Connell, joining us from the University of Gloucestershire, and also Dr. Martin Wood, joining us from the University of Gloucestershire as well. How we're going to run this event is there's going to be 3 sessions of about 10 minutes. So if you're planning your diaries for later on, we'll finish not long after 10 o'clock this morning. So you can do something else at that point. And obviously if you're watching the recording, you can watch this back at your leisure. So Georgia Hargreaves is a student recruitment assistant at Edge Hill University, and Georgia actually specialises in history. So history is one of the courses that she looks after, and therefore she's going to give us a broad introduction to history course at university. And then we're going to pass to Dr. Christian O'Connell. Christian is an academic course leader at the University of Gloucestershire, and Christian's going to talk from an academic perspective on perhaps what to expect on the course, more information about studying history at university. And then last but certainly no means least, Dr. Martin Wood, also an academic course leader at the University of Gloucestershire, is going to talk about university courses in religion, philosophy and ethics. And in the same way to Christian, he'll talk about what to expect on the course, perhaps why consider courses in religion, philosophy and ethics as well. I should say just before we start, if you've got any questions during this session, the Q&A is open, so do send them. There's a tab right at the foot of the page where you can post questions for our speakers as well, and I'll be delighted to answer them as you go. If you're watching back on the recording and you've got any questions, do send them over to me. My email address is jon@unitasterdays.com, and I'll do my best to get an answer for you. But you've not tuned in today to listen to me. You've tuned in to listen to our fantastic speakers. So I'm going to now pass to our first speaker. That's Georgia Hargreaves, who is joining us from Edge Hill University. Georgia, over to you, please.
My name is Georgia, and as Jon said, I work at Edge Hill University. I'm going to speak to you about history today and how to choose a course and what you should be looking for. So in today's session, we've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to be quick, but I'm going to cover a little bit about me, and then we're going to touch on why study history, history courses that you could be looking at, history modules, other opportunities, and then careers and employability. So as I said, I'm Georgia and I work at Edge Hill. So I studied my A-levels at Runshaw College from 2014 to 2016. And then I studied English literature at Edge Hill from 2016 to 2019. And now I work at Edge Hill in the Student Recruitment Department for English History and Creative Writing. I also, during my English literature degree, actually took a lot of history modules. So I do actually know what it's like to be on the history degree. So the first thing I always say to students is, well, why do you want to study history at higher education? And there's lots of reasons for that. So one of them is to continue your passion for exploring the past. So if you've got a really keen interest in history, that's the main reason you want to go to university and carry on studying it. But you're also going to get a lot of transferable skills that you need for future careers. You're going to get your hands-on experience that's going to enable you to apply for them professional level jobs straight after graduation. And you're also going to experience a range of teaching methods and assignments. But one of the main reasons I always say for studying history is the more you know about the past, the better prepared you are for the future. So it's a little bit cheesy, but as we all know, especially this year, the world is constantly changing. So understanding the role of the changing society helps us interpret the world in its current state. So I wanted to touch on history courses. So according to UCAS, for 2020-2021, there were actually 2,324 history courses from 140 providers. And these included everything from history as a BA Honours to history in English, history in philosophy, history in religion. So as you can see there, you've got over 2,000 history courses. And how do you distinguish between all of them and find out which one's right for you? So hopefully today I'm going to give you a few things to look at and to give you an idea of how to pick the best one for you. So one thing I always say is so important when you're picking your degree is to look at the modules. Now, if you don't know what a module is, think of it as a little segment of your degree. So like a little topic, and sometimes these are optional and sometimes they are compulsory. So I always say to students, get on everyone's websites and see what the modules are like, because every history degree will offer different modules, and it's always good to check if there's a wide range of subjects available. Do they align with your interests? So every history student will be interested in different parts of history. So see if the modules align with the parts of history you're interested in. And can you take elective modules? So as I said before, I was actually an English student and I never studied history before. But an elective module is where you can pick a module from the same department as you. So I was able to pick modules from history and creative writing. And it's just another good opportunity to look out for when you're picking that degree. So something else to look out for is student opportunities. And there'll be a lot of opportunities available to you when you go to university, but these are some of the ones I think are really important to look out for. So the opportunities to study abroad and go on trips. So a big part of history is actually getting out there and seeing parts of history that have been left behind and experiencing all the different cultures that you're learning about. So I always think studying abroad and trips are something really good to look out for. Extracurricular activities. So when you get to university, there'll be things called societies, which are like groups of people with shared interests. And for example, I know at Edge Hill our History Society is a huge one, and it's just something else you can get involved with outside of your course. The opportunity to learn a language. So I know a lot of our history students take language modules as part of their degree, so they're again just getting another skill to go towards their future careers. But also, can you learn languages outside of your degree? Bursaries, so look on university websites to see if they've got any financial support for you. Placements, so you want to know that universities are preparing you for those real life industries and real life careers, so placements are really useful for that. And department research interests. So when you get to university, you want to know that you fit in with the department and that you and the teachers and the staff in that department have shared interests so that you can work on things like a dissertation together. So another thing that you want to look out for is the skills that you're going to learn on your degree, and these are really helpful towards future careers. So some of the skills that you're going to look out for are things like problem solving, creativity, presentation skills, data analysis, time management, and I won't go through all of them, but the way that you're going to look out for these and make sure that you are going to get them as part of your degree is again by looking at those modules and looking at assessment methods. So I always think it's really good to go for a history degree that has a lot of different assessment methods so that you get an experience in presenting, in doing data, in doing teamwork. So again, look for them transferable skills and make sure you're picking a degree that's going to support all of those. And then moving on to careers, sorry I'm rushing a little bit, I'm just conscious of time. But moving on to careers, so I would say the careers with a history degree are pretty much endless. The world is your oyster. I would say a lot of our graduates go into teaching, and a lot of them go into things like actual history and heritage, business, politics. So as you can see on that slide, there is such a variety of jobs that you want to go into. And it's also really important to say that you don't need to know what you want to do before you go to university. So I always say to students, do the subject because you enjoy it, and then you'll find a job that you enjoy at the end of it, because your options really are open. And then just to support that again, just a little bit of data there about outcomes after history degrees. So this was published in 2018, and this is across universities in the UK, not just for Edge Hill. So as you can see there, let me just move this. So outcomes after a history degree. So 39.6% of people were working full time in the UK, and another 27.5% were on further study, which I would say is very accurate to the graduates that I see coming out of university, it's very easy to go straight into a full-time job. But I would say a lot of our history graduates also go on to do masters and similarly PGCEs. And if you don't know PGCEs, that's a 1-year teaching qualification, which a lot of our graduates go on to if they want to be history secondary school teachers. So I hope that gives you a little bit of understanding about the different careers that you can go into. So some application tips. So things that we're looking for and our admission tutors are looking for are motivation and passion for the subject, of course, just showing that you really do have a passion for that subject. Talk about your academic ability, so things that you've learned and things that you're looking forward to studying, but make sure not to put the grades in those personal statements, because we'll have known that already. So I always say that's something to make sure you're doing. Look at your skills and attributes. Talk about any work experience you've had. It doesn't always have to be related to the degree. And if you've got any hobbies and interests, we like to see those as well. And then just to finish off the session, should be straight on time, just a couple of top tips from me. So my top tips for preparing for history degrees are to read and write as much as possible. So especially when we've all been home for a long time, some people might have taken it as an opportunity to read and write more than they usually did. But I know some people also will have thought, well, college is done, put my feet up and put the books down. But my top tip would be to just keep on reading and writing so you don't get out of the floor. Step outside your comfort zone. So if there's genres of history that you've always really enjoyed, and maybe that's your go-to if you're reading a book or watching a history film, try and step out your comfort zone a little bit, because that's what you'll be encouraged to do at university. And finally, stay up to date. So I always recommend choosing a couple of different newspapers and reading them regularly so that you're up to date, because we'll always be applying those contemporary ideas to the past and seeing how far we've come or not come. And then finally, top tips for choosing a history degree. So attend as many virtual sessions as you can, like you have done today. Look out for those online open days and summer residentials. So these are things that we run and other universities run as well. But these can, for example, on a summer residential, you can do a history specific week so that you'll actually be studying with our academics. So look out for those and sign up to them to get all your questions answered. And as my final point, keep asking those questions, because no question is a silly question. And then just a last slide to things to consider. Feel free to take a picture or go back on the recording to grab this. But what courses interest you? That's the main reason for choosing your course. Which universities offer them? Just because it's the same name doesn't mean it's the same course. Think about what kind of university you want to go to, whether it's close or further away from home. What UCAS points or specific grade you need. Do you need any work experience? And what are the graduate employability rates? So thank you so much for listening. I think that was my 10 minutes. But if you've got any questions, I'll be on the Q&A to answer them. Thank you so much, and I'll hand back to Jon.
Thanks, Georgia. That was excellent. You've covered so much in such little time. A brilliant start to this event, so really, really appreciate that. Thank you. If you've got any questions for Georgia, please do use the Q&A and send them on. They're very, very welcome. If I can now introduce our second speaker, that's Dr. Christian O'Connell, who's joining us from the University of Gloucestershire. Dr. Christian O'Connell is a senior lecturer, and he's also an academic course leader at the university as well. So he's going to run us a fairly similar session maybe to George's, but look at more from an academic perspective, including what to expect on the course and perhaps more reasons about why to study history. So Christian, over to you, please.
Yes, I'm a lecturer at the University of Gloucestershire, primarily a lecturer in American history. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit on from what Georgia's very useful talk said about what to expect when studying a history course, and give you perhaps a bit more, both for personal and academic reason, or reasons why you might consider studying a subject like this. And before I get talking to you about some of the more theoretical reasons and practical reasons why studying a subject like history is useful or a good idea, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, and hopefully that will become relevant as the talk goes on. So as you can see in the images on the screen, there's kind of a faint image of a Budweiser beer bottle. And basically the images you're seeing here explain the reason why I became a historian. So when I was about 14, I saw a TV advert, and it was a Budweiser advert, and it was just in preparation for the 1994 World Cup, which was going to be hosted in the USA. And we were being bombarded with lots of Americana on TV adverts. And this advert in particular wasn't because I started drinking when I was 14, which is what most people often think when I say this. It was because I heard something on this advert. And the image there of the man with the guitar is a guy called Howling Wolf. And he recorded a song in 1955 called Smokestack Lightning, which I heard on this TV advert. And I was hooked. I wanted to listen to this more and more, wanted to find out where it came from. And I found out that this was this basically was blues music. It came from the American South, and I was hooked. I started listening to lots of music like this, buying lots of other records, similar music from the same period. And I started learning to play the guitar. And as I became older, as I studied my A-levels, and I started thinking about going to university, I started finding out much more about where this music came from. It came from the segregated South, the division of races between blacks and whites in the American South. And I became intrigued about this story of people making music while living in a very hostile kind of environment. And gradually, even through university, I learned more and more about the way that this system of racial division emerged as I was listening to more and more music like it. And I was going even further backwards, learning about the recording industry of the 1920s and 30s. And essentially what I did is I started working backwards and finding out about how Jim Crow segregation existed in the country that was presumably the world's capital of freedom. And then to understand that, you have to learn about slavery and how slavery coexisted with American democracy. And by the time I'd learned all about that, I found myself becoming an American historian. And the reason I'm telling you this, you're thinking, why is he talking about this subject? The reason is because Georgia actually mentioned this earlier. I don't think there's any better reason to study any subject or to devote 3 or 4 years of your life studying something than personal interest, a personal passion for something. I'm still fascinated by this music and the world it came from now, and it's something I research, it's something I teach, and there's a lot you can get from that. Don't let anyone tell you that you shouldn't pursue a personal interest because it might not be useful or it might not be valuable, because as I'm hoping to demonstrate, there's a lot of value in doing this. In fact, most of the major discoveries, whether they're from the humanities or science, come from people exploring a personal interest or following a path. And there's no better reason to choose any subject. And I suppose what I want to talk to you now is how that can be applied in history subjects anywhere, really. Obviously, they all differ. As Georgia said, they all offer something different despite being called the same. And that depends largely on the staff who teach them, their research interests, and how they teach it as well. But whatever history course you choose, one thing that you can be I want to shatter right now is that there's often this misconception that history, literally, you go to university to learn history, to learn dates, to learn names, to learn kings and queens, to learn about leaders, heroes. And in fact, it's the reverse of that, okay? Obviously, you do need to acquire a certain amount of knowledge of events, and familiarity with names and sequences of events is extremely useful. However, history is much more about interpreting what those facts mean. It's about investigating and trying to explain why things happen the way they do. It's also trying to appreciate perspectives that are perhaps been obscured. And in fact, historians are actually in the practice of constantly rewriting histories. This is why you find bookshelves full of books on similar topics. It's because they don't all say the same thing. Often there's differences of opinion, different interpretations, people use different evidence. But as well as that investigation, and as the image I'm showing here kind of is the reason I've put this up here, is to demonstrate what the relevance of that past is to us today. You know, why do we bother looking at events that from 100, 200, 300, 500 years ago? What do they mean to us now? And history isn't very much, there's a difference between history and the past. And what I'm trying to say here is history, what we do when we study the past, that becomes history, is very much the relationship between what happened in the past and how we interpret it and use it in the present day. And that's very much what the essence of studying history is. And we've never had any more, I mean, we're kind of, there's a kind of a paradox here, because we've 2020 have kind of rocked the world in various ways, whether they're for the pandemic or for the protests we've seen to do with Black Lives Matter. But they kind of bring to life the quote that I've got on this slide from the American author William Faulkner, who famously said, "The past is not dead, it's not even past." And if you look at a number of events, like, for instance, the Black Lives Matter protests, the removal of Edward Colston's statue here in Bristol, which happened last month, which indicates that events of the past matter in the present day. They are used, they are contested, they are the basis of clashes of ideas that often involve political interests. And if you look at the removal of Edward Colston's statue, for instance, this is not just, you know, something that some people have interpreted as a criminal act, an act of vandalism. For others, it's a symbol of a shift in thinking. And that's very much what happened when the statue was first erected in the late 19th century. Over 100 years, I think about 150 years after Colston had actually died, the statue they didn't even know what Colston looked like when it was put up. So there was a difference in context. You know, it used to be acceptable to revere a person like this, at the end of the 19th century. And in the early 20th century, it's become totally unacceptable. And we see this with the Confederate monuments in the United States, where the Black Lives Matter protests have targeted statues that honor and remember people who fought to defend slavery during the American Civil War. How else do we grapple with this if we don't understand the past? And this is not an easy process. It is very complicated. It's difficult. There are different interest groups. There are different motivations. There are different voices. Here, British, Black British. We have people from the establishment who take a very different interpretation. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that when you're studying a subject like history, it's also often very central to our social and political discourse in the present day. These are things that we often think are events that, you know, are so far in the past that they don't really matter right now, but actually the reverse is often true. The way we think about these things and the way they're used in the present day matter, and they're the central of political debate. So never let anybody tell you that what's the point in studying history? This is a question I've often had to answer in my own life. You know, what's the point? Why should someone study history? Why shouldn't they study something that's going to get them a good job? And this has kind of been covered by Georgia already. However, in fact, by studying these subjects, as I said, it's not easy. You need to be able to investigate, to interpret difficult information, to read between the lines. And on top of it, you need to solve problems. But on top of that, you need to be able to articulate and communicate a persuasive explanation for things. It's not just about learning dates and names. No historian is going to tell you, I'm going to tell you what happened and this is what you're going to learn. It's not about that. In fact, what we do at university is ask you to interpret the information for yourself and to be able to explain what happened in your own words, developing your independence, your ability to think for yourself. And this is an extremely valuable and transferable skill. So if you study history, what to expect on a course is to not be asked necessarily to memorize information, but it's being asked to produce explanations, to interpret information and evidence, to try and explain why things happen the way they did. And often, every year I teach my courses, I learn something new, because it's a constant process of discovery, of reinterpretation and reevaluation. And the skills you practice by doing things like this are extremely valuable, and that's why history graduates go on to a range of different careers. In fact, a recent report by the British Academy demonstrated that graduates in humanities subjects like history are just as employable in top-level jobs as people who study science, technology, engineering, and maths, STEM subjects. So there's a myth that humanities subjects like history aren't as practical. So never let anyone tell you what's the point in studying history. So expect to interpret, expect to debate, to challenge ideas, to evaluate different interpretations of what happened in the past and determine why it's significant in the present day. And that's why it's a beautiful journey in many ways. And I love what I do, because every year I learn something new about something that really matters. My primary subject is African American history. So this year, in many ways, has kind of brought to life many of the things I discuss in my classroom and put it on front page news. And I hope that for many of you that choose this subject, it will be a similar story. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much.
Our final session is going to look at a different subject area, but fairly closely related to history as well. And that's religion, philosophy and ethics. And I'm absolutely delighted to say that Dr. Martin Wood, a senior lecturer as well at the University of Gloucestershire, and also the academic course leader for this subject area as well, is joining us and is going to do a short session introducing courses in religion, philosophy and ethics. So conscious of time, I'll pass directly to you, Martin, please.
Okay, thanks very much, John. Good morning, everyone. Just going to share my screen, if it works. Okay, excellent. Okay, fantastic. My name, as John mentioned, is Martin Wood, academic course leader for religion, philosophy and ethics at University of Gloucestershire. I'm also a senior lecturer, and one of my main areas is Hinduism, and my subsidiary areas are Buddhism and emergent spiritualities. So what I'd like to do today is to talk to you about what you can expect from a degree in religion, philosophy and ethics, and the kind of students that we're actually looking for. Now, as Christian mentioned in the previous presentation, you're always going to find people who ask you, why are you doing a degree in religion, philosophy and ethics at university? Well, I've been asked so many times, and my answer is always, why would you want to do anything else? I mean, this course is something that will allow you the space and the time to ask some fundamentally important questions. For example, what's the essence of a life well lived? How do other people see the world? What role do religion, philosophy and ethics play in questions of social justice, for example, or even in the environmental crisis that we're facing at the moment? So, we're looking for students who really have a desire to tackle these questions, to grapple with these questions, to ask these questions. And also, as Georgia mentioned, we're looking for students who are unafraid to come out of their comfort zone, because there's going to be a number of religious and philosophical realities that you're going to come face to face with, which are going to be very, very difficult for you to come to terms with, if you like. So we're looking for students who want to develop the skills of empathy and insight, who want to learn skills that allow them to consider ways of thinking and being which are entirely different to theirs. Now, often, people accuse me of being passionate about my subject, which of course I am, but why? Well, for me, it kind of started back in the early 1990s. I was backpacking around the world, and I ended up in New Zealand, which was a beautiful, beautiful country. And I was very fortunate to be introduced to a gentleman called Jorge Hargreaves, who was a tribal elder for the Maori Tuhoi iwi, who are pretty much located up in the Urewera region of the North Island. Very beautiful, absolutely mountainous, beautiful forests, amazing rivers going through there. And Hohepa and his wife Dawe, who was a direct descendant of a very, very important Maori prophet called Ruakenana, took me into their world. They immersed me over a number of days in a sea of Maori religion and ritual and spirituality. And it was such an inspiration. It was such a different experience to what I'd been expecting. And that experience, that life-changing experience, has really inspired me to do what I do now as a job. And since then, I've been lucky enough to conduct research in India, in Southeast Asia. I've been back to New Zealand for several occasions for research, and also, just to be back in New Zealand, it's always a good place to be. And also I've worked with many, many different religious communities around the UK. So for me, the joy comes from working and engaging and interacting with a diversity of religious ideas and communities and people, sharing of food, exchanging ideas, hearing the sound of different languages around me, the smell of incense, if you like, entering sacred places. These are really, really, really beautiful experiences. But above all, I really love knowing that there's so much more out there that I don't know. Like with the study of religions and philosophy and ethics, the possibilities are absolutely endless, intellectually and experientially as well. So, being able to bring what I've learned into the lecture room and to encourage students like yourselves to want to have similar experiences and to have, to engage with similar things, that for me is a real, real privilege. And that's pretty much why I'm passionate about the subject. Now, sooner or later, as has been pointed out, you're going to have to decide what you want to do after university. And you're going to be asking yourself, well, where's this degree course going to take me? Well, it can take you anywhere. As Christian mentioned in his presentation, the British Academy have really stressed that, graduates in humanities subjects like religion, philosophy and ethics and history are just as valuable as those who go through university doing STEM subjects. And it's just the kind of skills that RPE students learn, such as being able to evaluate, to discuss, to present complex ideas in balanced and insightful manners that employers are really looking for in the careers market out there today. Now, many of our students go on to do postgraduate studies, and they enrich the academic community with their research. Some of it's absolutely amazing. But as mentioned before, a lot of students go into teaching. An RPE degree course will offer you the skills and the resources to allow you to speak about the world's main religions in a classroom with a great deal of confidence. Other students look to the creative and the cultural industries, so there are ideal opportunities in publishing and in marketing. There are also numerous opportunities in civil service, in technology, in areas of local government and social services and equalities. But the subject is also perfectly suited to fundraising and international development. My partner is a head of fundraising for a major international charity who work in India and East Africa. And she's constantly saying how valuable it is that people who work with her have an understanding of the religion and the culture that they're engaging with. So, there are numerous opportunities to work in the UK and abroad in a variety of NGOs and charities, which is just brilliant work and really, really needed at this moment of time. And there are many opportunities to work in environmental and green industries as well. So, anywhere, you can go anywhere. But as we know, as you will find out, every degree is a journey. And you're probably wondering what it's going to look like. So if you do a degree in religion, philosophy and ethics, you can certainly expect to get the opportunity to personally interact and engage with guest speakers from a variety of religious traditions. If you're engaging with field research for your degree, for your dissertation, for example, you'll be directly interacting and asking questions and developing your skills there. Also, you'll be interacting with respected academics in the fields of philosophy, ethics and religion. All of them will regularly come into the lecture room and enrich your experience of the subjects. But you can also be expecting to get out of the lecture room as well. In the past, I've taken students on national field trips to places like Glastonbury, not the festival. You can go there later on if you want, but the actual town itself is a confetti of New Age and paganism and goddess worship. I've also taken students to a number of places of Hindu importance around the country, one of the most significant being the Swami Narayan Mandir in Neasden. And also I've taken students to places where you might not expect them to be there. So the Hinimihi Maori Wharewhakairo meeting house, which is located in all places in the grounds of a stately home in Surrey, just outside of Gatwick Airport. But there are also international field trips. So for example, last year I took a group of RPE students to India. We were there for just over a week. It was amazing. We started in Delhi. We had the experience of Islam and Hinduism and Baha'i and Sufism and Sikhism, all in the Indian context. And then we traveled by bus, which was an experience in itself, up to Haridwar on the banks of the Ganges. And that's one of the most important places of Hindu devotion and worship in the country. And then we spent some time in a most beautiful place called Rishikesh in the foothills of the Himalayas. We practiced, we had a great time actually, we practiced a bit of yoga. We ate food in Hare Krishna temples. We took boats over the Ganges. We went to visit the Beatles ashram, which for me was almost like a religious experience. And then in the evening, we did beautiful fire artis on the banks of the River Ganges as it flowed past. So, I hope that gives you some idea of what you might expect on a religion, philosophy and ethics degree course. But I think what's really, really important to remember is that we're always looking for students who've got the right kind of genuine interest in the subject area and want to contribute to it. But also we want you to leave with the confidence to be yourself, because it's quite a confusing world out there at the moment. And, if you can put some context and some shape around it, then I think that would enable you to feel a lot more comfortable engaging with the madness which is going on out there as we speak. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you've got any questions at all. I really, really look forward to speaking to you. And I'm now going to hand back to Jon to conclude the session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. An excellent introduction. And again, how you've covered so much in so little time is very, very much appreciated.